Very excited about the next session, which is going to be a hormonal home cooking show brought to you by the fabulous Mary Maggic. She is an artist and a researcher and is going to take us on a little bit of a reflection today about the boundaries of biohacking, our bodies, and what we can cook up in our own homes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Maggic, and I am an artist trained in biology and media arts and sciences. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and I'm now based in Vienna. Today, I want to tell you all about a world we all live in called the Estroworld, an alien landscape that is colonized by hormones. So how did I come to realize this? Well, in 2015, I started a research project called Open Source Estrogen, looking at all the ways our bodies are controlled and managed at the molecular level. When you type in estrogen into Google image search, you can see that our primary relationship with estrogen has always been through the pharmaceutical industry and the corporate sciences. At the same time, hormones exist all around us as a state of environmental toxicity, with petrochemical and agricultural industries producing molecules that permeate every aspect of the planet, causing unprecedented levels of physiological, neurological, and reproductive mutations. This happens because the estrogen receptor is highly promiscuous, meaning the opposite of selective. Furthermore, this receptor is shared with almost all animal taxa. So that's why we see frog, fish, and bird populations in decline due to endocrine disruptors in the environment. This is the collective mutagenesis of the Estroworld. But just as the body can be stolen, it can also be reclaimed. If our world is an alien landscape colonized by hormones, what does it mean to decolonize our bodies and environments? What kinds of strategies can we do as citizens in a collective struggle with the human, the non-human, and the planetary? There are many terms to describe my practice: hormone hacking, freak science, estrogen geeking, but the term I align most with is public amateurism, meaning learning, doing, and failing in the public sphere, and removing the hierarchy of the expert. This in turn creates critical spaces for collective queryings of the status quo. One of the first hormone protocols I explored was the use of transgenic yeast biosensors for detecting endocrine disruptors. With these yeast that act as extensions of our bodies, I could finally visualize the molecular semiosis that happens when estrogen comes in contact with our estrogen receptors. Because I was running workshops all around the world called EstroFem Lab, I created a mobile lab for traveling with my transgenic yeast and all its reagents. Oddly enough, I never got in trouble with airport security, even though I was obviously carrying very sketchy stuff. The next mobile lab that I created is what I like to call the extraction lab, and this lab is used for extracting hormones out of the environment and out of your own urine using a DIY column chromatography method and peristaltic pumps. The results of the urine extraction is a brown sticky substance you see at the bottom of the tube. After the workshop, we take turns smelling each other's hormones, which are now pheromones, that can activate an ancient and evolutionary response in our brains. You either love the smell, you hate it, or you smell nothing at all. The same urine protocol was used in a 10-minute speculative fiction film called Housewives Making Drugs, where trans women are the stars of their own fictional cooking show, teaching the audience at home how to extract your own hormones in the kitchen and taking your bodies into your own hands. I wanted to offer a vision where feminist concepts of body sovereignty could be applied to biohacking and biotechnology, and that science could be performed by and for queer people. At the same time, at the end of the show, the audience gets on stage and we all take shots of hormones together in a catchy estrogen song and dance. Continuing to bridge hormones and cultural discourse, I came across an article where two species of fish were hybridized to create a hermaphrodite species, and this species was called a hopeful monster in the title of the publication. With all the toxicities that we're exposed to every day, why can't our bodies also be considered hopeful? For example, this blogger writes, I don't think it's right that the government is putting birth control pills in the water supply and making all the men gay because we need both men and women to propagate the species. So, it's very easy to slip back into homophobic, transphobic, and even xenophobic discourse when you're talking about endocrine disruption. So in response to this, I created the Molecular Queering Agency, a fictional service that guides participants through the process of queering through an audio-visual projection and a urine-worshipping ritual. The participants put on oxygen masks containing hormones, therefore consenting to their colonization. In order to neutralize fear and panic, I present to them a 3-step process for living in an increasingly queer world. Step 1, toxicities. You live in an alien landscape that is colonized by hormones. Step 2, semiosis. But you're already alien with plastic in your blood and in your urine. Lastly, subjectivities. Do you want to be more alien than you already are? In this permanently polluted world, we see that not all bodies are created equal. A doctor looks between your legs when you're born and decides if you're a male or female. For intersex, trans, and queer people, their bodies are often unjustly policed and pathologized by medical science and institutional gatekeeping. So, I created a work in progress called Genital Panic, where participants walk into a staged gynecology office, sit in the chair, and make 3D scans of their own genitals to be submitted into an anonymous online database that is crowdsourced from the masses. I asked myself, what does a queer feminist population study look like, where the authority of science that has always policed gender and sex normativity was removed and came from the bottom up rather than the top down? I thought, we need to be making spacious room for all disobedient bodies. After all, we're all glitches of our material consumerist culture. What we buy and eat and drink and inhale creates different combinations inside of our bodies. In fact, we are not the fixed and stable constructs that we're told we are. It's really about what kind of inclusive future we want to build. We live in an Estroworld, but it can also be our Estroworld.